Like everyone else the last year or so, I've spent a lot of time alone. The lockdowns began and early layoffs put my roommate out of a job. He had to move back across the country to our hometown area to live with family because he couldn't afford rent anymore. That meant, of course, that I lost much needed rent assistance and slowly went into debt trying to pay my bills. It also meant that I was now completely alone, whereas before I at least had one of my closest friends around for support. During the worst part of the year, I also lost my dog to old age, my long-term relationship ended, and I lost my own job and had to deplete my savings and go further into debt trying to survive. I don't say all this as some sympathy ploy. Hundreds of thousands of people just in my own country went through similar or worse experiences than I did during the depth of the global upheaval that was the last couple years. Wow, it feels so weird to say that. Couple years, not singular year. You've probably all seen the memes about how time seems to have warped and 2019 feels like yesterday instead of nearly 2 whole years ago. The worst year ever for many of us has dragged on, but somehow it feels like a long time and no time at all. Like everybody else, I picked up new hobbies, some of which I've stuck with and others I put on hold. One hobby that carries me through almost the entire time was old reliable, video games. Resident Evil Village and Animal Crossing aside, the game I spent the most time on was one that might surprise people who are trying to escape a sense of loneliness. You've been watching me play it this whole time I waffled around, eventually getting to the point of this video. I wanted to tell you how I was feeling during my time fixating on this game. That way when I try to work out why it helped me through feelings of isolation and fear of the future, you know the place I was occupying during that time. I've sunk too many hours into this game. That's just the Steam version. I don't want to look at how many hours I sunk into the Xbox version before getting my computer set up. And I definitely don't want to see those numbers added together. I have to fight the voice in my head that tells me these are hours wasted, that I could have been doing something productive with the time I spent exploring the frozen landscape of Great Bear Island. I often listen to audiobooks and podcasts while playing to quiet that voice, but often I just let myself go and listen to the muted sounds of the quiet apocalypse. Among other things this game has done for me, it has also helped me turn that nagging voice off. The Long Dark showed me that there is a kind of peace in isolation, a silent dignity in going about your solitary life, doing the daily tasks that keep your meat suit alive and functioning. It didn't cure my existing depression or totally remove the existential dread of constant isolation, but it showed me that I didn't have to see that time as a waste of my life. So, what is The Long Dark? Its store page describes it like this. The Long Dark is a thoughtful exploration survival experience that challenges solo players to think for themselves as they explore an expansive frozen wilderness in the aftermath of a geomagnetic disaster. There are no zombies, only you, the cold, and all the threats Mother Nature can muster. Welcome to the quiet apocalypse. That's a fair description. It tells you exactly what to expect in terms of gameplay and a bit about the soft world building of its survival mode. There's also a story mode, but I'll get to that later. What it doesn't or can't tell you is how the experience of battling nature on your own might make you feel. This one relatively simple, sort of repetitive game. Wake up, drink some water, eat a slab of deer meat, check your clothing condition, and head out into the icy winter to explore and collect wood or food or more water so you can do it all again the next morning. This isn't a game where you build up a base, getting better and better armor, or weapons, or food sources, and stockpiling a custom-made palace of resources. This is a game with a finite number of weapon types. How effective they are depends on how effective you are in your scavenging, hunting, and learning. The first time your rifle jams as a bear is charging toward you will be your lesson in keeping a weapon clean. You can stockpile supplies, but the decay rate the world imposes means they will eventually spoil. You can max out your cooking and gain a resistance to food poisoning from spoiled food, but that takes a while if you're not just cooking tons of reishi and rosehip teas over a few days to max it quickly. The first time you desperately eat something with 7% condition and get food poisoning, it will instill a fear of low-quality food in you. Woe is the player who doesn't also have antibiotics or reishi mushrooms in their inventory, so you die from that poisoning and never travel without those items again. You probably won't learn some of these lessons quickly enough to not die. A lot. And death in survival mode is permanent. I'll never forget the first time I died in a blizzard. I had made it maybe 10 in-game days, not long after I finally tried out survival mode. I didn't realize when you died, your save would wipe. I got annoyed when the ominous "you faded into the long dark" screen appeared, and I exited to the menu. I was fully intent on loading back up and trying to find shelter before the blizzard hit. But there was no save to load. My annoyance quickly turned into anger, the type of anger that only losing all your progress in a game can create. I thought about taking a break, but instead started again, this time on a lower difficulty so I could get my bearings more before trying harder settings again. This time I died after 2 days because I didn't know about the bear spawn in Mountain Town, and Old Smoky got me. I reloaded again and kept going. Before I knew it, a real-life year had passed, and one of my survival mode saves was nearing its 300th day, something I still have not achieved since. And then I fell through some ice, started to freeze, and then got eaten by a wolf because I got careless with my supplies and time management. Losing that save hurt. After a few days to mourn its loss, I started another on higher difficulty. That one I still have today, and it's in the 200s for days survived, with many of the skills maxed out. Skills in this game, like many others, allow the player to feel a sense of progression. Unlike many other games, though, in the Long Dark, that progression doesn't give you a sense of becoming an all-powerful demigod who's practically untouchable in late game. It is specifically designed to make you feel like you have become slightly better at surviving. There are 9 skills in survival mode that are trainable by the character. They are archery, carcass harvesting, cooking, fire starting, ice fishing, mending, rifle firearm, revolver firearm, and gunsmithing. They are mostly trained by doing the associated action. So cooking is trained by cooking food or teas, fire starting is trained by successfully starting a fire, rifle, revolver, and archery are trained by firing the associated weapons. You get it. You do the thing and you get experience. There are skill books tucked in random spots around the world that I found most useful for training skills I didn't use as much, like gunsmithing. Gunsmithing is tied to crafting new ammunition for firearms. I never got around to training this skill until the last few weeks or so, because I had never made the pilgrimage through the ravine to get the door code for the cannery in Bleak Inlet. I finally ran low on ammo and had to venture out of my safe zones into Bleak Inlet because I am a terrible shot with the bow. I was able to go that long without using gunsmithing, but that definitely doesn't mean it's a useless skill. It just means I was a fearful player who didn't want to face the Timberwolf packs roaming that region. The only survival mode it doesn't really matter too much is the highest difficulty, Interloper. That difficulty level has no tools or weapons that spawn in the world, so you can only use craftable items like the improvised tool set or bow. Being an experienced player in an unfamiliar region was made a little easier by my high-level skills when I made that run. Higher levels of fire starting make it easier to start fires without the use of tinder in the process. Higher levels of carcass harvesting allow you to harvest faster, minimizing time spent unmoving in the wild, surrounded by hostile wildlife. That fire by the body isn't just there to stop me and the carcass from freezing, it's also to keep wolves away while time is speeding past. They won't attack you while time is fast-forwarding through an action, but they will jump on you right after that action is complete. If I haven't made it explicitly clear yet, survival mode comes with just so many ways to end your journey. Sleeping outdoors for 3 hours instead of 2 can put you in the middle of a blizzard that has put out your fire and brought you to the point of hypothermia risk. It's a constant challenge that can wipe you out in a flash. Even during these mad rushes to survive, it is hard to miss the beauty of the solitude on Great Bear. Now that I've gone through some of the survival mechanics, I want to talk about the world. Note, this is specifically the world of survival mode, which is a bit different from the story mode. When you drop into survival mode, you don't know anything about your surroundings. You can fill out a map with bits of charcoal pulled from the remains of campfires or stoves, but you won't see your current location on it. You can sort of cheese this a bit by using spray paint to leave a marking on the ground or a tree, and then when that mark shows up on the map, you know exactly where you are. I mostly use the paint to mark searched buildings, or in the case of the coastal highway fishing huts, I mark which ones don't have a door that closes to shut out the wind. The world around you in this mode is quiet and mysterious. There are no other people, just frozen bodies and notes left behind by the ones who have gone. You explore deserted towns and mining operations. There's even a dam that is long abandoned. What's happened here? These cold, lonely places must have some reason for existing the way they are. Only the memories left of those who used to be here. The only signs of life you will find is the mysterious signal fire in Hushed River Valley. Who are these people? What are these places? And why are they falling apart or burnt to the ground? Those answers can be found in Wintermute, the story mode of the Long Dark. When I first got this game, it was actually a long time before I wound up getting addicted to it. I think a few months before I went into lockdown, I played through the existing chapters of the story up to that point, which was chapters 1 through 3. I didn't play them very thoroughly and missed a lot. It was the lockdown that made me replay with a keener eye for details. Wintermute is one of the weirdest but compelling stories I've ever played. In episode 1, Do Not Go Gentle, you are Mackenzie.
Jackrabbit Remote Transport, Mackenzie speaking.
I told her not to come up. I told her you couldn't fly in this weather. For once, will you not be so damn stubborn and listen?
Slow down, Maureen. What are you talking about?
The pilot of a small plane whose ex-wife, Dr. Astrid Greenwood, begs for help getting to a small community located on Great Bear. They take off in bad weather and are fine until the mysterious Aurora appears and the plane goes down. Mackenzie and Astrid are separated. This episode is separated into different main missions. The episode itself is named after the poem by Dylan Thomas. The line, "Do not go gentle into that good night, rage, rage against the dying of the light," captures the whole vibe of this first episode. The separate missions are Memories, The Crash, The Grey Mother, and Paradise Lost. We've been through the first two, now it's time to meet the Grey Mother. Mackenzie finds his way into the town of Milton, simply named Mountain Town in its survival mode counterpart. He sees smoke rising from a chimney and investigates. On the way, he finds a bloody corpse wearing an orange prison jumpsuit with a trail of blood leading to the door. Inside the house is an old woman. Cloth wrapped around her eyes tells us that she cannot see.
Anybody here?
She rests by her fire with a gun at the ready.
Hey, wake up. Holy shit! Wait! Hold your fire!
Her memories are cloudy. She remembers men coming to take things from her before she injured one of them. She remembers a woman passing through town around the same time. Grey Mother needs supplies to get her through the cold, and Mackenzie decides to help while looking for Astrid. Grey Mother has some of the best lines in the early game.
I had a name once, but for years the townsfolk have called me Grey Mother. A name takes on its own life, such that at one point, the name becomes the thing it belongs to. Then the old names fade, can only be remembered by the young and the true.
Through her, you get a sense of the way this island has been taken advantage of by people from the mainland. Everything taken, then the people left behind when nature started reclaiming the land. While scavenging the Milton region, you come across the next NPC, an old man named Methuselah. He shares his name with the biblical character known for his long life. He seems to know more than anyone else about what is going on during the quiet apocalypse.
Well, another stranger. Have you escaped the town?
Escape the town? No, I just arrived.
Not a refugee from the highways, then. You look weary, traveler. Come, warm yourself by the fire.
Methuselah has an air of the supernatural about him. He first appears in the Orca gas station and is gone when you leave and re-enter, only for him to appear again at the end of the chapter to comment on your actions. Even things he shouldn't know, like whether or not you decided to kill the convict Hobbs, who was holed up in a farmhouse with a knife in his gut. Hobbs tells you more about what happened in Milton. He and other escaped convicts from Black Rock Penitentiary were let loose in town after a tunnel collapse crashed their bus.
That scarf wrapped around your arm. Where'd you get it?
They rounded up townspeople in the old schoolhouse and burned them alive. They chased Astrid to the crashed bus where she was able to fit through a small opening and escape after leaving a message for Mackenzie. The word Perseverance written in blood, a reference to the town of Perseverance Mills where Astrid is heading. Hobbs is unapologetic for his actions. He seems almost proud of them. Mackenzie can choose to twist the knife in his side and kill him, or pull it out, leaving him to the mercy of Mother Nature. In this playthrough, I let him live, but usually I wind up killing him because, well, he sucks. After returning to Grey Mother, she gives Mackenzie the climbing gear of her daughter Lily. Throughout the episode, Grey Mother becomes confused when speaking to Mackenzie. She mixes up past and present. She seems to be speaking about someone else when trying to remember information about Astrid. The last thing you can do for her before leaving her behind is to bring Lily her pearls. You find Lily's grave at the church and return the treasured item to her. She died in a climbing accident, and her equipment has laid dormant in a chest ever since. Grey Mother thanks you for your kind deeds, and you leave her to survive on the supplies you gathered. Leaving Grey Mother caused this overwhelming sense of loss in me. She would remain alone with nothing but the sound of her fire for company. but you did all you could for her, and hopefully she will survive, at least for a little while. There's even an optional side quest you get by reading a note on a bench near her chair to add even more supplies to her stockpile to get her through particularly bad forecasted weather. After the second meeting with Methuselah, where he brings up things he couldn't know, like your choice to unalive Hobbs or let him live, you climb out of Milton. The final quest, fittingly called Paradise Lost, has reached its conclusion as Mackenzie finds his way through a cave system and arrives in Mystery Lake. The first thing he sees is a man being attacked by a bear. Mackenzie picks up the man's fallen rifle and shoots. Episode 2, Luminance Fugue, begins with Mackenzie in the old trapper's cabin. The man's name is Jeremiah, and he is too injured to be much use aside from directing Mackenzie on what to do. He sends you first to the old Carter Hydro Dam for medical supplies. The dam is unstable from the quakes that caused its abandonment and needs to be navigated carefully. On the way there, you find the actual lake of Mystery Lake and its various outbuildings. You can take time to ice fish and find all of the keys to unlock the lake cabins. There's also a man who has locked himself in one of the cabins and leaves the building for you to loot after you help him recover supplies and documents for the Forest Talkers. They are an activist group, sometimes referred to as eco-terrorists, and during this episode, they are a big source of supplies from caches left around the region.
Holy shit.
This chapter is probably my favorite, but it's almost totally immersion-breaking. Early on, Mackenzie comments that Jeremiah won't last long without these very important meds, but then you can just spend, honestly, however long you want exploring before getting them to him. My first detailed playthrough, I think I went about 30 days just before getting these supplies. Oh, and some parts to fix a radio and try to contact Perseverance Mills. At the trapper's cabin, Mackenzie and Jeremiah talk about the old bear who's been following you around the map. The bear seems unfazed by rifle shots or arrows. Jeremiah tells the story of the Spence family, settlers in the area who dealt with a similar demon bear before forging a special spear to slay it.
What do you have in mind?
There's an old story. Local legend, maybe. About one of the original settlers of this place. Spence. Story goes something like this.
Jeremiah says he doesn't believe the bear is actually a demon, but thinks that 10 inches of metal stabbed into the bear might do what bullets can't. The spear's hanging in a hunting lodge that, you guessed it, Mackenzie must make his way to by traversing the Forlorn Muskeg and Broken Railroad regions. I want to stop and point out something about the story of the Spence family. First, in survival mode, the rundown Spence family homestead is a location that can be critical to the player with its forge, bed, and some loot. I play survival mode, and it's nice to go to it and remember the story of the bear. Without playing Wintermute, you don't know who the Spence family were. The namesake of the location is a mystery. Just another crumbling building blanketed with snow and prowled by wolves. Wintermute's light touch with world building doesn't tell you exactly what happened to the family. It gives you just enough that on those survival forge runs, you might spend some time wondering how the place got like this after the defeat of the mythological demon bear. Second, the way the story is animated during the telling is a nice touch to keep the screen visually interesting while these long conversations are going on. The art style of the entire game makes me think of watercolor paintings, and these still images wreathed in flames look like a living version of a painting. The long conversations of the game can get a bit tedious, so this bit of visual flair was really beautiful. The story also serves to maintain the vaguely supernatural feel of what is going on. As Methuselah says, nature is equalizing. Jeremiah has noticed animals behaving strangely, and his conflict with the unkillable bear is a small-scale version of the battle with nature that humanity has had with the island and the world at large.
You live out here long enough, you get a sense for the patterns in nature. Right now, patterns are broken. Critters aren't behaving the way they should. It's like they're spooked or something. No, not spooked. Changed somehow.
Who will come out on top? The pure, unstoppable forces of nature, or the ingenuity of humankind?
Oh, shit.
There may not be a clear answer to this question, but that doesn't stop Mackenzie from running through Forlorn Muskeg and to the hunting lodge and Broken Railroad. He's chased by the bear all the way there. After one encounter, Mackenzie wakes to find Methuselah nearby, ready to dispense more cryptic messages about the Aurora and other happenings on the
I'll
island.
go.
And you?
No, but it was only a matter of time. This has all happened before.
He is gone on the return journey, of course, though the bear remains. Jeremiah is becoming agitated. He asks Mackenzie to help with a plan to boost the radio signal so the next time the aurora hits, they can contact the outside. He claims to have an important message for someone, but that they can prioritize trying to get a hold of Astrid if Mackenzie just cooperates.
Did you find it?
Frustrated with,
Legend might be bumped.
everything, Mackenzie has some of the most realistic lines in the whole game so far.
I have a legendary 150-year-old demon bear hungry for my blood. Bullets don't stop him, but I'm armed with basically a medieval weapon, which I'm sure will do the trick. I'm stuck in this winter wasteland where lights in the sky make the power flicker and electronics explode, and the only people I seem to meet are all slightly crazy. And this is all after I crashed my plane deep in the wilderness and somehow lost my ex-wife along the way, and I'd really kind of like to find her back.
Don't forget about the wolves.
So Mackenzie is off to the radio towers to get the parts to boost the signal. At each one, he has a showdown with the bear, injuring it before it runs off. With parts in hand, Mackenzie slogs through the snow back toward Jeremiah's cabin. And unfortunately, this is where my footage for this chapter has to end because I encountered a game-ending bug where the bear doesn't spawn to attack me and drag me to its lair, where we then sneak around and kill it. But that's what happens. It's a great segment that really hammers home the human versus nature idea. You don't have your trusty spear, so it's just a plain old human against a plain old bear. Without our tools, humans are nothing in comparison. You must find your spear and take that sucker out before skipping off back to Jeremiah. A brief radio call doesn't yield much information. Mackenzie's determination to reach Perseverance Mills grows stronger, and Jeremiah sends him off with an important message to deliver to an associate. Just one word: Wintermute. Ding. Roll credits? The journey continues past the lake and through the dam during the aurora. Methuselah waits for us to deliver another of his vague, prophetic chats. In the dam, we meet the final character of this chapter, an aggressive-acting man who threatens Mackenzie before knocking him out. This episode improves on the world-building done by episode 1. The characters speak more plainly, rather than the clouded statements of the Grey Mother. The ongoing disasters that have created the world we see are fleshed out. There's something about exploring the industrial setting of the dam that just feels different than the abandoned homes and empty woods. Episode 3, Crossroads Elegy, offers a change of pace. After the cliffhanger of Episode 2, we are now joining Astrid. She's found by a hunter after falling unconscious in the snow. The hunter is a woman named Molly. She nurses Astrid back to health, but doesn't seem to trust her. She padlocks the door when she goes out, leaving Astrid to feel like she's less a guest and more a prisoner. Molly storms out after Astrid confronts her about this, and then calls on the rotary phone party line to beg Astrid for help. Wolves have her trapped in her barn. Astrid runs to assist, but not before finding the body of a man in Molly's basement. A man who looks a lot like one Astrid saw in a photo with his arm around Molly. Molly has escaped the barn by the time Astrid arrives, and from now on, we don't see her again. We do hear her, though. She periodically calls the party line and waits for Astrid to answer before asking questions about her actions. In the town of Thompson's Crossing, Astrid meets Father Thomas in the community center. He is nursing people who have wandered into town from a commercial airline crash further up in the mountains. Astrid puts her own goals on hold to find the crash site and recover life-saving insulin from one of the injured. She also finds the IDs of every dead passenger and a passenger manifest to see whose bodies are missing. A lone survivor prompts probably the most tedious part of this chapter.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you're in pain, and you just want it to end, but I won't let you die out here.
Astrid picks them up and very, very slowly walks them all the way back to the community center. And then you do it 3 more times to find the last of the living passengers. Though gameplay-wise this feels tedious, it is an important part of Astrid's journey. She's here on Great Bear because she was trying to save a life in Perseverance Mills. She didn't trust anyone with the information she carries in her brain. Molly is another woman who doesn't trust others, but for different reasons. She watches Astrid rescue these people at great personal sacrifice because of her own urgent mission. Then Molly watches as you fill up the food and water stores for the survivors and Father Thomas. If you could sprint through carrying the passengers or didn't have to travel far to help them, it wouldn't as effectively show the effort Astrid will go to when helping others.
Between the plane crash and the houses in the area, I'm gonna pull together whatever supplies I can find. Maybe between the 2 of us, we can keep these people alive.
Father Thomas tells Astrid she needs to find someone to share her burden with, and immediately after the next call from Molly, finally reveals how her husband died. Molly is turning her isolation and distrust into vengeful anger. She plans to get payback, but on who she isn't clear. If Astrid can't find someone to share her burden, she may wind up the same way. Molly directs Astrid to a radio control hut where she can maybe call Perseverance Mills. While there, Astrid hears the call made by Mackenzie from Jeremiah's hut but can't communicate back. She takes the route through an old coal mine to try and get to him and the town they are both heading for. I'm not going to talk about episode 4 because it's still recent, and this video is more about the specific stuff that got me through the pandemic. Maybe once the last episode is released, I'll revisit the game in a video about the last couple episodes. I spent a lot of time by myself, feeling oddly comforted by this game. Real-life isolation feels more manageable when you're playing out a story of human beings overcoming isolation to connect with others. Episode 3 ended on an almost uplifting note. The Aurora killed a lot of people on that plane, but Astrid couldn't let people suffer, and so gave what she could to help them. At first, she tries to turn away the father's offering of his rosary before accepting grudgingly. For the player, it isn't about what you or she believes. He's trying to show her that there is someone looking out for her. He can't join her lone journey, but he can remind her with his gift that there are people who would share her burden. You can't talk about this game without talking about the bugs and less than optimal design choices. There isn't a jump button, so you have to find traversable paths instead of glitch jumping up the side of a mountain. Though you can jump down if you're careful enough. I know I'm not the only one who has jumped down from Timberwolf Mountain's summit rather than climbing or going through the caves. It's just so much faster. And the only thing you'll really sacrifice is maybe a couple of bandages and painkillers. There are tons of game-ending bugs for Wintermute, and weird bugs in survival as well. It seems like every time a major update gets released, it will break features that worked for you before. I had an almost bug-free time with this game during the last year or so, but after the episode 4 release, I can barely make it through an episode because of all the major game-ending bugs. It has a great voice cast too. Honestly, all I needed to know is that Commander Shepard herself, Jennifer Hale, is in it. The music is soft and unobtrusive. I often play while listening to an audiobook or podcast, but sometimes I do just play with headphones on to listen to the atmosphere. Playing without sound is risky because sometimes your only warning that you're about to crest a hill and run into a bear is the noise they make. I've put so much time into The Long Dark, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. Its story had me contemplating our own world. In a global crisis, are you an Astrid? Someone willing to spend long, tedious hours helping complete strangers through the snow out of a sense of duty to help others? Or are you a Mackenzie, whose help comes almost entirely from a place of compassion for other people without the added sense of duty? I can't wait for the final episode to release in the future and see this story's conclusion. Until then, I'll keep slowly making my way alone across the frozen island, surviving one day at a time. Ironic that this is the game I finally stopped feeling guilty about. I've spent an accumulated few weeks worth of hours playing this one game. It sounds silly to say it, but it truly changed my entire view on isolation and the things we can do to connect with others despite that isolation. It is really a gem, and you should pick it up and play it. It's a nice reminder that sometimes doing what you need to survive is enough. Thank you for watching this very long-winded video about a game I really like. It's almost exam season, so I wanted to put something out that I would really enjoy talking about. I wasn't expecting the script to go for more than 5,000 words, but here we are. I had a lovely birthday, both my celebration itself and the actual day later on that week. I got this amazing art of my cat that's hanging above my office couch. Longtime viewers will remember how he started screaming every time I tried to record last year. He does that less now. He saves the meowing for late at night when I'm sleeping or when I'm in a Zoom class. I have a lot of ideas for upcoming videos, so subscribe and don't miss an upload. If you like the video, click the like button so I can brag to my friends about my internet likes. I do have a Patreon where you can subscribe for as low as $2 a month and get access to some other stuff I've uploaded that I don't really have an outlet for anywhere else. Thank you to my current patrons whose names will be on screen right now. Special thanks to Kathy for the music and my friend Alora for helping me proofread this beast of a script. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.